This is my presentation on muscles, specifically the muscles of the rotator cuff, presented by Jake Friedenberg.
First of all, the way that I figure out the actions of a new muscle is I first find the attachment points of the muscle. The origin is usually the fixed end of the muscle, and the insertion is usually the movable end of the muscle. I then try to determine how I could decrease this angle between the two attachment points, and this will help me determine the movement of the muscle. For example, if I had an attachment point, my bicep, and another attachment point, my forearm, and I wanted to decrease this angle, I would flex my arm, also known as flexion of the arm, to decrease the angle. Another example is if I wanted to move my shoulder to my head to decrease this angle, I would elevate my scapula. So this would be elevation of the scapula. The first muscle of the rotator cuff is the supraspinatus. The medial attachment point, or the attachment point that is closer to the midline of the body, is the supraspinous fossa of the scapula, and the lateral attachment point, or the attachment point away from the midline of the body, is the greater tubercle of the humerus. The striations of this muscle are horizontal, and the primary action of this muscle is abduction of the arm. The supraspinous fossa of the scapula be around here, and the greater tubercle of the humerus would be here. So if I wanted to decrease this angle, I'd have to move my arm away from my body. So it'd be adduction of the arm, and it would decrease the angle of the muscle. Next muscle of the rotator cuff is the infraspinatus muscle. The medial attachment point of the infraspinatus is the infraspinous fossa of the scapula, and the lateral attachment point is the greater tubercle of the humerus. The striations of this muscle is diagonal. The primary action of this muscle is lateral rotation of the shoulder joint. If I had a point, my medial attachment point, and I put my thumb on the lateral attachment point of the greater tubercle, if I wanted to decrease this angle, I would have to laterally, so away from the midline of my body, laterally rotate my shoulder joint. This would decrease the angle between the medial attachment point and the lateral attachment point. The next muscle of the rotator cuff is the teres minor. The medial attachment point of this muscle is the lateral border of the scapula, and the lateral attachment point is the greater tubercle of the humerus. The striation of this muscle is also diagonal, and the primary action of this muscle would be lateral rotation of the shoulder joint as well. Similar to the infraspinatus, greater tubercle and teres minor, to decrease the angle, you'd have to laterally rotate your shoulder joint away from the body, and this would decrease the angle between those 2 points. Next muscle of the rotator cuff, the last one, is the subscapularis. The medial attachment point of the subscapularis is the subscapular fossa, and the lateral attachment point is the lesser tubercle of the humerus. The striations of this muscle is diagonal, and the primary action of the is the medial rotation of the shoulder joint. If you're looking at the scapula, at the interior portion of the scapula, you'd have a lateral attachment point of the lesser tubercle of the humerus, and then this subscapular fossa would be around here if you're looking anteriorly of the scapula. And to decrease this angle, you'd have to medially rotate your shoulder joint. So you'd be moving your shoulder joint towards the midline of your body. And that would decrease the angle.
Those are the muscles and the actions of the muscles of the rotator cuff. This is my works cited page. Thank you for watching.